Hey guys, what's up? Lone Berserker here, and in this video, I am going to be talking about how to counter skirmisher cabs. So obviously, this isn't Rome 2, this is kind of for, I guess, any Total War game in general that usually has to do with skirmisher cabs. So I have this set up here because I think it's easier for me to talk about it, and I'm also going to use one of my own videos for this. So I guess first we'll talk about, let's actually just show the video. So here's this one. So I was Pontus, he was Egypt. We both had skirmish cav. I gotta find the point. So we both have skirmish cav in this battle. I have 3 Scythians, he has 4 Tarentines. So here you can see he's moving them around my flank at this point. And so, he really, honestly, what he did was really smart. So he kept his Tarentines behind his army, and then when my Scythians were around his flank, he charged with his Tarentines around my wing. Now the way, typically, when 2 people both have skirmish cav, they put them on their, I'm trying to remember, because you hold, the shield is the left side. So if it's, okay, so if you're on this side, I guess you could say the bottom side of the field, you usually put your skirmisher cav on the left so they can shoot the right side of the enemy. If you're on the top side of the battlefield, you usually put it on the opposite side so it can shoot the opposite side of cavalry. Now, for cavalry, this can be very frustrating because, like, let's say you got an expensive shot cav and someone's got skirmisher cav, the dumbest, weakest cav unit in the game. It can severely cripple that shot cav very easily just simply by going up. That's gotta be bigger. Simply by just going up and skirmishing and then retreating. And so that can be very, very, very frustrating, losing heavy cav, very expensive cavalry to skirmisher cav. And so you got a lot of ways to counter skirmisher cav if you have your own. Now I'm going to give you the first example at if you don't have any skirmisher cav. So typically when I don't have any skirmisher cav, I tend to put my cavalry behind my army. Now this is problematic, to say the least. Essentially, I'm already giving superiority to my opponent. Let's say he's got skirmisher cav, he has superiority over the wings. I'm not even gonna try and counter them because I physically can't. But that leaves me exposed, my cav exposed, and the flanks of my soldiers on the outside. Anything here is basically in a danger zone. So there's a few ways you can counter this. Now, usually your typical army is going to have crappy infantry in the front, skirmishers behind, heavy elite infantry behind, and then cavalry behind. At least that's how I usually set them up. Some people will put, like, instead of the elite infantry, they'll have cav in between the elite infantry, which is kind of smart. It can usually give you an edge in the fight if you can get the charges off correctly on someone else's front lines. Now let's just put that in perspective. You have no shot cav. You obviously will have an advantage over your opponent. Well, usually you'll have an advantage over your opponent in the melee fight, simply because they'll have less soldiers, because some are currently on the wing shooting you to death. So, with your crappy front line of infantry, the typical way you can do this is, obviously, again, there's multiple. You can send your army forward, and right before the melee engagement, you can switch and put your crappy infantry behind your army. Now, the thing that does is severely weakens your front line. Obviously, it doesn't look like it, but now someone doesn't have to worry about getting hit by double javelins if they cavalry charge your front line. So you've basically kind of almost given up the front line. The other way of doing this, much more sensible thing to do, would be to take 2 specific units out of your front line. They're crappy, obviously. stretch out your front line even further, and then pray to God that your opponent doesn't have heavy missile cav that he can charge and kill your crappy infantry with. Because now your opponent is just going to either waste missiles on these guys or be chased by them all the way around the field, or he's going to slip around them, which he can easily just run around the unit. But by the time he does that, you should have already edged close enough to your opponent to shoot them. Now let's say you've got a rush army. Come on. Like a pike rush army, which I love using. I think they're fun. They're really fun, actually. Now for a pike rush army, I only tend to bring 2 skirmishers and 3 horse skirmishers. Like missile cav, I guess you could say. Usually it's Scythians. So I can cover my wings pretty easily, honestly. But let's just say you don't bring any skirmisher cav. Why? I don't know. So again, you've seeded the wings, but you got a pike rush army, so you got to be careful because you can take a lot of casualties very quickly. Since you are already going to lose the archer fight, and you have 2 archers at the most, maybe 4, but at the same time, I don't know why you'd bring 4. Since they're not really that important, you can swing the archers around the flank and have a cav unit sit behind them. So if he charges, he's immediately going to get charged by the cav unit from behind your line. And if he doesn't, he's going to get shot. And I'm pretty sure there isn't a skirmish cav that outranges a missile foot unit that I can think of, at least in terms of archers. I know horse archers can outrange peltist, but nobody wastes their ammo on peltist because they have too good of armor. So there's those solutions, and then there's a solution to just forget about it and just go forward and attack your enemy. Now the thing is let's say you do attack your enemy, you're frontally engaged with him, and you're winning the battle. Let's just put that, like, you know you're going to win the battle if it continues the way it continues. Your opponent has got at the minimum 2, but usually 3 skirmish cav just sitting here waiting to go at your back line. You can either just leave your cav here and hope that they don't take too many casualties, but you're just going to lose a lot of guys. Now, the other thing you can do is another much better scenario, actually. You can put your archers back here and leave 1 cav unit behind. Just put the archers sort of close together, I guess, and make sure they can engage quickly. And another way to beat skirmisher cav is I don't see them using this tactic at all, is peltist. At least light missile cav. Peltists have enough armor to the point where they can actually live on the charge, unlike archers. And missile cav sucks in melee engagements. They'll lose no matter what. I don't think it's physically possible for them to win in a melee engagement. Unless they're like Galatian Raiders or Swaby Scout Raiders, then you're going to be in trouble. But still, I'm pretty sure a peltist, just simply due to numbers and armor, they will win that fight. And peltists are fun. So like if you brought 2 archers to go in the front lines and then 2 peltists to go in the back, that would actually counter skirmisher cav pretty effectively. And peltists are fast, so they can just maneuver around the wings or wherever they need to be as they please. Now Okay, so that is the first scenario. So it's pretty simple, as I said, to just block your opponent with infantry, crappy infantry that you have. That doesn't matter in the melee fight. Obviously, again, you could use your own, like, what this is saying if you don't have your own. So obviously, you could use skirmishers backed up by cav. Another thing you could do is actually use very light cavalry, like those Gallic riders. They're very light. They have a javelin, and they can actually catch cav pretty quickly. Honestly, they're fun. They're a fun unit to skirmish with. So they're good, but the problem is they die too quickly, and if they don't catch the unit, then they're probably gonna end up dying. But actually, if you can get the javelin toss, I think they have 2 javelins. Maybe 1 actually. No, I think they have 2 in a mod that I play. I think they have 1, but either way, if you can get the javelin throw off and then possibly frenzy charge into him, you could, you will easily catch a cav unit. So the next scenario is, let's say you do have skirmish cav, and you plan on confronting your opponent with it. Well, I say confronting, but... So let's just put into perspective, you both have long-range missile cav, so like Scythians and Sarmatians, something like that. You both can shoot each other from far away. I tend to be very aggressive with my missile cavalry against other missile cav. So like in this case, I would easily be the aggressor, because in my opinion, if you can get engaged in a melee fight with someone else's missile cav, you can take them down pretty quickly, and it's simply because most people when they see your missile cav coming at theirs, they're gonna retreat. They're gonna retreat theirs, and they want to try and get volleys on yours and force you to retreat. But usually, in this case, I will press the advantage to the point where I'm just getting, like, losing a lot of guys, but so is he. And if I can catch him in a melee fight and just pin him down and make his unit useless, even if I lose mine in the end, in my opinion, that's a win for me. That's usually what I typically do. But if I want to save my missile cav, let's say he's got elephants or something, and you only have slingers, and you want to save the arrows to deal with the elephants, but you still want to skirmish on the wing so he doesn't kill you, or shoot the flanks of you guys. In this case, it's very useful to just go at him quickly and then pull back as soon as you went. My God. As soon as you went at him. So usually the typical fight between two missile cav is that you both go forward, you both retreat, you both attack and retreat. And usually it doesn't go escalate from there. You just gotta hope that you've got the superior micro to avoid being shot and also hit your opponent at the same time. And that also isn't easy. And then there's the case where your opponent possibly has armored horse archers. This is very difficult to deal with, at least in my opinion. So let's say you've got light missile cav that'll die from one arrow, and he's got heavy missile cav, like armored horse archers. The best thing to deal with these guys is, I would personally say, move an infantry unit out, like a crabby one from the front line again, and have your missile cav stay behind it. The only thing with this is, if your opponent's brave enough, he'll just charge the unit, because he knows for a fact you're not going to engage because your units are too light. Now, if he does that, in my opinion, the best scenario would be to engage, and then quickly bring another cav unit from your main line into the fight, and attempt to hold him long enough for them to join in. But that's risky and usually doesn't work because the opponent will see it quick enough. So if you do move an infantry unit out, 9 out of 10 times the person's just going to charge it and just suck the losses up. Because if they're armored, it does take a few volleys to bring down the horses. Now, that is the usual technique. Another one you could do is, let's say your opponent's being aggressive with this armored missile cav. Like, let's just say he's charging you across the map. One thing you can do is just deny him an engagement, like run around the map, let him chase you around and stuff. And then by the end of the game, not end of the game, later on, when he is like, let's say you guys are engaged now in a fight, and he turns his guys sideways to shoot or charge yours in the flank, you can just come back and shoot him, and then when he turns on you, just retreat again, and just continuously cycle this, because it's very effective if you can just stay away from him and then come back when he's not paying attention and shoot the unit. But I can't stress this enough. You have got to stay away from armored horse archers when you have your own horse archers. Now, if you're doing, let's say you've got Swaby scout riders, and your opponent has Scythian mercenary horse archers or Armenian horse archers. It really doesn't matter. A horse archer that's not armored. In this scenario, I will do the same exact thing that I did with the horse archers, and I will just charge straight into his guys, and I'll press the advantage until he's all the way back in the map, or one of us has lost so many men that it's not worth it anymore. The entire point, at least in my mind, with a skirmish fight on the wings with your cav, is just to neutralize the enemy skirmishers and make them useless. And that's the same thought process I have in the center here. When two groups of archers engage, my goal here is just to neutralize the skirmishers, not necessarily kill them, but just make their units so small that they're almost useless and can't cause enough damage to my line. That's typically what I'll do. And if I've got a severe missile advantage, then I'll do as much damage to the archers as I can and just start shooting the infantry, because that at least makes the most sense to me. If your archers, like, let's say they're armored archers, like Syrians, I think they've got 40 armor, going up against a crappy Eastern slinger, if you can quickly shoot them to death and then target the infantry, then that's the best case scenario. So yeah, usually the typical way of stopping archers on horse archers on the flank is just put a unit of infantry there, and if you've got cav, just if you got cav, put them in the back and just don't engage. But again, if your opponent has armored cav, armor like javelins or armored horse archers, he's going to charge you. And again, there's just the other way of, if you don't have any skirmishers, horse skirmishers, just give him the flanks and just go and quickly win the fight to make his horse archers useless. Now you can do that, or if you engage and the guy's smart enough and he can keep his micro, he'll just get behind you and shoot the crap out of your line, and then when you turn your skirmishers, he's gonna focus fire his on your infantry. So it can be tough if you don't have your own skirmish cav, and that's honestly why I almost have it in every army. There are very few times you won't see me bringing it, especially as like the Swaby. I bring 3 scout riders because I know I need them. They're good for taking down skirmishers, and they're good for melee fights with other horse skirmishers, and they're very good at just distracting and harassing people, and they protect my very vulnerable flanks. Swaby's units kind of suck, at least in terms of armor. They can die very quickly from archers. So yeah, usually, like I said, it's kind of basic when you think of it. Just put a unit in front of his, so he can't get by you. Chase him around. A Thoreo Spear would actually be perfect for this. They've got 80 range, I think, but I would much prefer the Peltist, because they definitely have 80 range. I know that for a fact. And if you buy the good Peltist, obviously, like the Pontic Peltist, or I'm trying to think who else has an actual the mercenary Greek Peltist, or the Greek Peltist in general, those are pretty good. But if you get like the crappy Eastern Javelin men, they're not going to work. They have terrible morale. So yeah, that's kind of it, honestly. You've just got to keep your opponent far enough away that he can't shoot your archer or your flanks, because your flanks, from his perspective at least, are going to be very vulnerable. And then you can just be dirty and lay caltrops down if you're the defender. And no, I've never done that, sadly, but now I should, that I just said that. I don't think I've really seen many people deploy traps. It'd work though, honestly, caltrops, because you can barely see them. They're such an effective cav killer too. At least I wish they were more effective, honestly, but they do a pretty good job as it is. So I think that's it, honestly, you guys. I really don't think of anything else. So I would say, I guess as a recap, I would just say, if someone has skirmisher cav and you don't, either ignore them or put a unit out here. Just sacrifice a unit to keep them from getting at your flanks. That's really all that matters, especially if you have an infantry advantage. Because what I tend to do, if I know I don't have an infantry advantage and he doesn't have skirmisher cav, I tend to put the pressure on it severely when it comes to hitting someone's flank, especially their cavalry or their infantry. Like if it's Rome, I will severely put the pressure on with skirmisher cav just to do as much damage to their flank as I can. But I would say the most effective is putting an archer like this on each side to guard the wings. Or an infantry unit, either way, a peltist or anything. Really just, it's not hard. They're just annoying, really, especially when you get an idiot who chases them with this heavy cav. Those are the type of people who quit and never play again. Because their cav won't last. It's over very quickly. So I think that's it, guys, honestly. Again, just keep a unit in front of your line, or behind your line on the wings. You get the idea. And have it backed up by a skirmisher. That will usually I say, that should work. And deal with it pretty easily. But again, the only problem is the hard counter towards armored horse archers, because they can actually take a few volleys from archers. So you're on your own on that one. And then there's the case where you just don't fight a faction that can bring horse skirmishers. Alright guys, I'm done. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.